Hey, what's up, mortals? It's Miggy Sawdust here with a new video for you. Welcome to part 15 of What If Izuku Got One for All Early. Just wanted to greet you all by just saying, sit back and relax. You're in for a treat. Let's get it! Midoriya dashes through the forest at sound-shattering speeds. Koda held on to Izuku, gripping whatever fabric or skin he could as tears were forced from his glands from the wind pressure. The Emerald Speed Demon bounced from tree to tree as leverage to blast forward, committing what he learned from the rescue training into real action. Are you holding up all right, Koda? The child clenched every muscle in his being, committing every ounce of power in his body to gripping strength, holding on to dear life. I'm fine. Suddenly, a shadow-cloaked hand pierced through the trees, attempting to grab at Midoriya. Izuku barely reacted fast enough, and leaped over the thick tree leaves to evade the ambush. From the darkness within the woods, there was an even deeper abyss dwelling inside, equipped with a body. A deep growl rumbled some crows from the trees as Izuku was still staring down from above. The same shadow hand exposed itself, and at the base of the arm, Tokayami's beak could be seen, sprouting out from dark shadow. Is that Tokayami? Midoriya eventually came to the conclusion that the edgy bird boy lost control of his quirk. He needed light to counteract this attack from a fellow student. Get away, Midoriya! As Izuku began descending, on his way down he noticed Shoji. He landed roughly, landing on tree stems on the way down. When he approached the ground, he made sure to fall on his back to protect Koda. He coughed upon landing. The impact was a bit too much. Luckily, Black Whip assisted in softening the blow. Midoriya stood up slowly. Koda was doing just fine. When he regained himself, he approached Shoji. He hid in the bushes, keeping incognito from Tokayami. Midoriya, what are you doing here? Shoji notices Koda in Midoriya's arms, followed by his wounds. Holy crap, you don't look so good. And isn't that Mandalay's cousin? Yes, it is. And I'm fine. Anyway, is that Dark Shadow? Shoji nodded, affirming Izuku's worries. Midoriya hands Koda over to Shoji. Koda's the only civilian I know of out here. We have to keep him safe. Look, I'm gonna guide Dark Shadow over to the fire. That should weaken him enough for Tokayami to be able to retake himself. Dark Shadow starts moving towards them as the trees are getting knocked down. Go, now! Keep him safe! Koda looked towards his hero while encapsulated in Shoji's Dupla arms. You'll be okay, right? Don't worry about me. Everything's gonna be fine. Midoriya thought back to All Might, and what example he set for Izuku just before he died. A smile formed on the young pillar's face. Because I'm here to keep everyone safe. Good luck, Midoriya. Shoji rushed away to take the child to safety, thinking back just now and noticed how much like All Might Izuku sounded. Midoriya stood his ground before the abyssal body before him. He stood before Dark Shadow, waiting for the chase to commence. Dark Shadow broke down the tree right in front of Izuku when suddenly a giant explosion went off. Dark Shadow turns towards the echoes of the bombastic noise, rushing towards it. What was that? I don't have time to think about it. I have to go take care of Dark Shadow. Izuku rushed through the trees. What followed was a cluster of darkness knocking down trees as it chased after the young pillar. Meanwhile, Todoroki struggled to stand back up from this ongoing battle. He glanced over at Zero and the Class B student. The strength of the explosion took both of them down. Zero, are you okay? Todoroki gazed past his iceberg. Moonfish was caught in the middle. He mumbled the word flesh over and over, even at the brink of consciousness. At least he's taken care of. Todoroki grasped his shoulder, an injury he acquired from the battle with the razor-toothed villain. He meandered his way to his unconscious companions before the elongated teeth made their move once again, slicing up the area Todoroki was in. Luckily, the hero in training was able to react in time. The teeth did little more but scratch up some extra ice towers he conjured. The homicidal maniac elevated his damaged body above the ground by using his teeth as stilts. His voice crawled out of his mouth, as if his mouth was full. Flesh, 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 you will pay with your flesh. This hurts, this hurts, this hurts, this hurts. His teeth stomped on the ground like a toddler throwing a fit. He complained and whined about the pain of his injuries like a child. His head snapped into many different directions, his neck crackling with each change in direction. He kept repeating himself before his head snapped back toward the direction of the hero. Suddenly, the spastic nature of the villain ground to a halt. All of his noises and movements paused for a while before speaking again in an ominous tone. Die! Todoroki couldn't help but watch in horror of this psychopath as he mumbled on and on about flesh. Suddenly more teeth went to slash at the ice towers that were barricading Todoroki and the unconscious students. The noise of razor-sharp fangs grinding against ice was enough to make the young student cringe under his teeth. He couldn't do anything in this situation except constantly reinforce the ice. He couldn't use his fire quirk either, or else the towers would give way easily. This turned into a battle of endurance, and Todoroki was on the losing end. That's when the explosion occurred. Bakugo's explosion sent Moonfish flying into a few trees. The explosive teen put on a maniacal smile at the freak before him. Miniature combustion set off in the palm of the young man's hands. He planted his fists together, putting off a threatening stance.
This freak giving you trouble, icy hot!
Katsuki Bakugo. It was a sight to behold. To see Bakugo take that guy down with little effort wasn't anything but grandiose. However, the sigh of relief was short-lived. Even an impact shot like that wasn't enough to keep Moonfish at bay for long. His mouth jolted his body as the teeth sprung out to attack Katsuki. However, Bakugo's finesse was a bit faster than his sneak attack. He launched himself upward using his explosions as vantage points, bouncing with each blast. He smoke-screened Moonfish before blasting behind him, and aimed to his back, letting off another blast. This launched Moonfish forward, but his teeth bent behind himself and shot back at Katsuki, not leaving the boy unscathed. Cuts and stab wounds littered Bakugo's body.
You damn freak!
The barrage of teeth kept advancing at Katsuki, who was doing his best to evade the tines flourishing at him with every fiber in his being. Todoroki was still in his bind as well. Just because Katsuki joined in doesn't mean Moonfish forgot about the boy protecting the unconscious ones. The prongs attacked from both ends violently and without any sign of holding back. They were both in trouble now. A sharp rustling of floor whispered in the villain's ears. Rumbling occurred as well, fast rumbling, and with each step it grew louder and louder. The loud creaks of tumbling trees also grew more apparent. The villain turned his head to face the general direction of the noise. What he saw was rustling in the bushes. Shortly after, Midoriya leaped out from the bushes, socking the Gnasher right in the jaw. He landed on the other side of him, sliding across the floor.
Midoriya? Deku!
Midoriya scooped out the situation he caught himself in the middle of. Moonfish was still recovering from the blow. Some of his hit teeth even cracked under Izuku's fist. The Black Whip-cloaked hero kept looking around. He noticed Sero and the Class B student. He rushed behind the ice towers to find cover, paying no mind to Moonfish outside his bombastic entrance. He picked up the Class B student, Kosei Tsuburaba.
Todoroki, grab Sero, we have to get out of the way, now!
Todoroki choked up from this sudden change in mood. He followed Midoriya's lead and they quickly moved the two students out of the way. Bakugo followed as well, still trying to figure out what Midoriya was doing here. Though the unsettling rumble shook Katsuki to his core, and he rushed to follow the other two. Moonfish recovered shortly after, and faced towards where the loud noise was emanating from. Todoroki, after gaining some distance from the freak, finally mustered back some common sense and began to ask questions.
What is going on, Midoriya? You'll see.
Dark Shadow then burst onto the scene, grabbing Moonfish with its giant hand. Moonfish sprouted out his gnashers, slashing and stabbing at the abyssal body that had a hold on him. Though, there was no impact or injury that occurred to the monster. Out of rage and desperation, the tooth-bearing psycho lashed out at the beast, swaying its razor's teeth all over. Dark Shadow had had enough. Playtime was over. He began squeezing hard before rampaging through the forest, following the students while the stray-jacket maniac was pushed into every passing log. His body was forced through them before he inevitably degraded into a barely living thick paste. Once the villain was taken care of, Izuku shouted,
"Now!"
Todoroki unleashed his fire, Katsuki his explosions, and they rushed at Dark Shadow, flooding him with light until eventually Tokoyami re-established his bearings, dropping Moonfish on the ground. Dark Shadow was nothing but a scared little shrivel of the monster he once was.
Thank you, friends.
Midoriya gives Tokoyami a helping hand. The crow grabbed his hand and pulled himself off the floor. They all collectively glanced at the mess of a villain which sprawled out on the ground. His straitjacket was torn and blood leaked from his mouth. Most of his teeth were completely torn off, while the others were partially snapped off. Bakugo rolled his shoulder before speaking up.
So what are we gonna do about him?
Izuku faced Katsuki. He began to answer. For now I need you to head back to the camp. You're the strongest combatant I know. I think there's something going on over there. The rest of us will take these two to safety. Bakugo nodded and rushed off towards the camp, using his explosions as propellers. At the main camp building, Shigaraki meandered creepily towards the students. Kaminari, Mina, Shinso, Monoma, Kirishima, and Sato were the ones present. Monoma fell to his knees.
Sensei?
Monoma was internally defeated. He couldn't wrap his head around the current situation before him. His teacher had died before his eyes, and his killer seemed too strong to reach. This was an adversity the students likely couldn't survive from. Despite the odds, Shinso was the first to make a move. Hey, you're Shigaraki, right? Why are you here exactly?
Can't believe you haven't heard of me. Well, suppose it doesn't matter now. You're going...
Shigaraki cut himself short. His mind began to phase into static before he stopped moving altogether. Any motor function that worked before had grinded to a halt.
Go away.
Shigaraki turned around and started walking in the opposite direction. Shinso turns to the rest of the students, touching Monoma's shoulder, grabbing onto it lightly. Monoma began to stand up, clenching his kneecaps. He faced towards Shigaraki's back, who was still trapped in a daze.
I bet it was that bastard Bakugo who told him we were all here. Who else could get in contact with the League of Villains and expose us? I knew we shouldn't have trusted him.
Shinso tightened his grip on the blonde's shoulder.
How dare you? Of course we can trust him. He killed their leader and now they want him dead. Don't ever talk about my friend like that.
Monoma was astonished by Shinso's vigor and determination for Bakugo. He had no idea they were that close.
Now come on. Let's get out of here before my quirk wears off. He can kill us all in seconds.
Everyone turned tail and ran, except Monoma, that is. He grabbed Kaminari's ankle and charged at the dazed Shigaraki. He built up a ton of electricity before coursing it towards Shigaraki. The strands of lightning shot through the villain's body, causing him to spaz out, but also snapping him out of the brainwashing. Monoma went in for another volt attack, but Shigaraki reacted, bringing his hand out. Blonde Hero was mere inches away from sudden death. Before he could touch the skin on Monoma's face, a flash of light knocked Shigaraki sideways, flipping him into a pile of rubble. Bakugo once again saved the day with his boisterous smile. The pale-skinned malefactor slowly dug himself out of the rubble that the explosion pushed him in. He sighed as he stood up, rubbing the bits of dust and debris from his sable black hoodie. He glanced up towards the oppressor, smiling maniacally when he saw the face of the atomic blonde.
Oh, Bakugo. So nice to see you again. You know, I didn't get to say goodbye last time. This time I'll make sure you're gone for good.
Shigaraki crouched to place his hands on the ground. The earth beneath them all began to decay around him. The decay inched its way towards Bakugo as well as the other students. Monoma yelled out at the villain. His emotions were conflicting from what he had said earlier.
Why do you want to kill him so badly? Isn't he a part of your league?
The grand evildoer smiled his chapped lips, ripping them further as he chuckled.
Katsuki Bakugo? Part of the league? No, in fact...
Once again, Shigaraki's mind went blank, awaiting orders from Monoma. Bakugo rushed towards Monoma and picked him up, blasting them both away.
How'd you do that?
My quirk allows me to copy up to 4 quirks. It was more of a blessing that Shinso grabbed my shoulder before he booked it with the rest. Bakugo and Monoma both succeeded in escaping from the decay-inducing bastard. Shigaraki was left frozen in place, his hands still touching the ground, causing the dirt to disintegrate until all that was left was a dust cloud and a crater underneath. After some time, he broke out of the brainwashing.
Higanto, are you present?
A pair of glowing white eyes glared out from the darkness of the forest behind Shigaraki.
Yes, master.
Nails tore bits of skin off the corrupted adult as he scratched, completely frustrated with this outcome.
After them.
Back in the middle of the forest, Midoriya, Tokoyami, and Todoroki rushed through the trees. Tokoyami had Darkshadow carry Moonfish at a safe distance in case he regained consciousness. Their ears rang with the sounds of deep metallic buzzing in the distance, followed by a few screaming students. They nodded at each other before dashing off in the general direction of the sounds. When they advanced closer, the buzzing noise grew louder and louder, and soon the scene came into fruition. A giant Nomu attached with electrical saw blades for hands chased after Yaoyorozu, and a Class B student. Thank you all for sticking around, and I hope you enjoyed that. Before you all leave, we would just like to let you know that We the Celestials has many other channels for your entertainment and viewing purposes. Before you leave, we'd just like to let you know that We the Celestials has many other channels for your entertainment and viewing purposes. All the information you'll need is right below here in the description, so feel free to check out all the other incredible projects our team creates. Secondly, on behalf of We the Celestials, I'd like to thank everyone involved in the production of today's awesome content. Their details will be in the description below as well. That's all for today's video, so goodbye and have a divine day.